Where are the low-value men?
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site. If you can believe that, you can believe that, you can believe that.
Contracted COVID, but says with a mixture of medicines, including the controversial horse dewormer that has poisoned hundreds of people nationwide, he's now recovered.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
From the headlines to the whisper start. Low value mail, low value mail at 9 o'clock. Where truth and fiction take a walk.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon? You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Our stories are.
Welcome back, everybody, to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail on this Monday, November 3rd, 2025, the year of our Lord. My headphones are all fucked up. Of course, why not? Just the left one doesn't work for some reason all of a sudden. Why not? Also, I might get rid of the live chat. I might have to get rid of the live chat completely because I'm firing up the stream. And then I see someone named In Hot Water says, oh, the music is doubled. And I go, great. Just another fucking problem. And then he goes, oh, I actually just had two windows open. My bad. And I'm thinking, here we go again. Shout out to Incitvs. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. For handing out a Low Value Mail channel membership. It's episode number 165, everybody. Welcome back. Joining me at the top of the hour, we have a cool ass guest. I've been breaking my fucking grundle for you folks to get cool guests. I hope you've been enjoying the guests. I hope you know what a grundle is. But joining me at the top of the hour, we have Joe Atwill. He is the author of Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus, as well as Shakespeare's Secret Messiah. And he'll be joining the show a little under an hour. You can also watch his documentary, which I watched today, titled also Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus, on YouTube for free. The scroats like free, don't they? So go check that out or watch the show and see what you think. And then you can go watch it. Before I get started, support the show. Like the stream. Just like it. Even though you guys liked it a lot last week and it didn't do jack shit. But do it anyways. I don't know. You can like the stream. The best thing you can do is if you have a friend, I know a lot of you don't have any friends because all your friends are in the chat right now. These are your friends. These might even be your family. I would go as so far as saying, I hope it's not the case. But share it with a friend. If you think this episode's good, share it with a friend. If you're a Spotify listener / viewer, drop a comment, but most importantly, subscribe to the show on Spotify. And if you would like to financially support the show in exchange for no ads on all the episodes, as well as a lively chat room that I participate in, you can do so patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL, $5 a month. And you don't get to see me do the Bud Dwyer thing, but that might be money poorly spent. Depends how you feel. Really does. All right, let's get started. We got a couple things I want to get to. And then we're going to open the phone lines. And of course, I have the little super chat goal. If we get 20 super chats, I'll do an extra half an hour. If not, it's all good too. Okay. New York City is going socialist tomorrow. It's happening. Tomorrow's the big day. New York City is getting I don't even know if is it its first socialist mayor? I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I would have, for the most capitalist city on borderline Earth, it seemed like it's a bit of a big deal that they're getting a socialist mayor. I will say it is amazing that someone with the same opinions as a first-year liberal arts major will be the mayor of this city, but here we are. We are here. You ever got one of those maps? You're lost in the mall. It says you are here. That's where you are. Except for that many of you don't even live in New York. And you don't care that this is happening. I'll even go one further and say that some of you don't live here and you're hoping this happens. It's a bit of, I don't know if it's a schadenfreude, but you're gleeful. You're gleeful about those big city New Yorkers finally getting it stuck to them, huh? Now, I'll probably say there's a tiny chance Cuomo legs out a victory here, which is what I'm hoping for. It doesn't seem likely. Probably Trump giving him the endorsement. Not great. It's not ideal. And again, it's not what I'm hoping. It's not because of Cuomo or Mamdani's policies. Rather, just Mamdani supporters are some of the most insufferable people on earth. And it'll just bring me joy to watch them have full-scale meltdowns for no other reason. I'm a simple man. I am a simple, petty man. But it feels like that's not going to happen. Zoran's going to be the mayor. And as mentioned last week, the guy has all the vibes, tons of riz. If you're over 35 years old, go look those up. What I'm even talking about. Cuomo has no riz, no vibes. Curtis Sliwa, who I like, would be my choice. Shane Gillis did a very funny impersonation of him on SNL on the weekend. I like him. He's not going to win. He crazy. I don't know what it says about me where I go, yeah, the guy I like the most has the least chance of winning. But then I'm a Toronto Blue Jays fan, so kind of par for the course, isn't it? To those of you who don't live in New York City, taking joy in a Mamdani victory, I'd just like to say not so fast. Because if it can happen here, it can happen in a lot of other places in America too. You ever heard of a vibe shift? Look that up too if you're over 35. It could happen. If you're a fan of political drama, if you're just like one of those just straight into my vein politics junkies, this is probably the best case scenario for you. It'll be fun. I'll actually be on Wednesday afternoon. I don't know what time, but I'll be on the Will Cain show on Fox News, probably discussing this after Zoran wins. So you can catch me there. My prediction for Mamdani, first time as mayor, he gets very little done. I don't, it's one of those things. I don't know if I'm too cynical or just cynical enough, or I'm a pragmatist. I don't even know what any of those words mean, but I don't think he's going to get a lot done. New York City, because his whole thing is like, we got to make New York City more affordable. I'm for that. I'm not some 1%er billionaire guy. I put my pants on just like everybody else. Both legs at the same time, ball gag in my mouth. I'm a normal guy, right? But, and you know, maybe this is the elitist part of me. Maybe this is the Jew part of me. New York City by nature has to be unaffordable to live in. It has to. There's very little space. There's a massive population. It's like 8-10 million people or something. And people all over the world want to live here. It's literally a recipe for unaffordability. And I don't, you know, and everybody's like, oh, well, if he wins, I'm moving. No, you're not. Shut up. Shut up. You are not going anywhere. Just like you didn't move when Trump won. You didn't go to Canada. You live in a $9 million apartment next to Central Park on the Upper East Side. You're not going anywhere. Okay? You could have moved to fucking New Jersey last year. You know why you don't want to live in New Jersey? Because it's fucking New Jersey, okay? And you don't want to live in Connecticut. You just stop it. You're not moving to Pennsylvania. Shut up. Okay? Rich people literally live here because they like it, okay? They understand. They go, man, I'm rich here. You know how rich I would fucking be in Dallas where I just was? Holy shit. If you're a top 1% here, you are a top 0.01% in almost any other place. But they like it. And free buses and a 2% tax increase, it just won't change that. The 2% tax increase, I don't even mind. That's actually kind of a smart move if he can pull this off for Mamdani, for like the super crazy high earners or whatever. Or I don't know if it's for the high earners or for the corporate tax rate. But the fact is he just wants to make it match New Jersey. And the thing was always just like, well, if you guys make it so unaffordable here, we'll go to New Jersey. And they go, well, we're just going to match New Jersey. Smart move, to be honest. But New York City, financial nexus of the world. There are more millionaires here than any city on earth. And, people are worried that New York will become Soviet Russia overnight. Not going to happen. Best case is it gets closer to maybe a Toronto. Go Jays, even though they lost. And I still don't even think that'll happen. I don't. I don't know. I'm just not big enough of a doomer on this. I'm a doomer on some stuff. This one, I'm not. I mean, baby, the biggest worry for anybody would be if somehow Mamdani does a really good job and the idea of socialism starts spreading all across the United States. That would be potentially the worst case scenario. Because maybe it's, for a short period of time, he can kind of make it work. But, we all know what the story looks like on a long enough time frame. We're eating rats, okay? You are in bread lines, and if you see a delicious rat walk by, you go, that's hopefully dinner, except I'm too weak to catch it because I'm malnourished and I'm a New York City bug man. I don't know how to catch animals. Donald Trump has no chance of helping himself. Like, his best thing he can do is he needs to just ignore Mamdani as much as he can. I know that he can't help himself at all. He's just going to be like attack, and try and fuck over Mamdani as much as possible. I don't think that's a good idea. I think he needs to ignore New York City as much as possible. Definitely do not send in the National Guard here. Mamdani killing it, that might mean you get AOC running for president in 2028. You understand that. I hope for Americans, you understand that vibes go a long way. Vibes go so fucking far. At the end of the day, we all know this. Politics, as much as it's good policy and yada yada, it's a popularity contest. You're back in high school, and it's the hot dude who's banging the quarterback who's banging the prom queen. You go, we like that guy. I don't know who AOC is in this analogy. I guess she would be the prom queen. But again, I'm not a huge doomer. Bill de Blasio was the mayor of the city for 7 years. That guy's basically Mamdani. Not that far off. And sure, the city will be a little more dangerous. Whatever. Honestly, that's mostly for women anyway. It's not that dangerous for guys. It's mostly dangerous for women. And they're voting for Mamdani way more than the dudes. So maybe these ladies just need a little taste of their own medicine. Maybe they need a little comeuppance. Is that not fair to say? And New York City, again, I know everybody who doesn't live here goes, that must be just hell on earth. It's so unsafe. It's not that unsafe. It's fine. Sure, some people get lit on fire sometimes on the subway. That happens. It's just the cost of doing business when you live in a big city. Homeless women get lit on fire. It happens. There are a lot of crazies screaming at you. I will say that, but they're generally safe. I don't know. You kind of have to think of it like a haunted house. New York City is very much has a haunted house element to it. If you ever go to a haunted house around Halloween time, walking through that thing, all these people start just popping out at you, being like, ah, and you just go, cool. That's how you treat the crazies in New York City. You're just living in a haunted house. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We got a super chat from Howling Labubu, $1. Thanks, Howling Labubu. Thank you. The government shutdown. One more thing, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. Actually, you know what? I'll open up the phone lines now. I'll let y'all get in there. Get in there. 1-888-949-2969. Extension, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know. Government shutdown's coming for the food stamps. I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of opinions on this one, don't you? Over 40 million Americans right now. Oh, sorry. Over 40 million people in America are at risk of going hungry due to the government shutdown. It's unclear how many of them are illegals. A friend of mine, I couldn't quite verify this. A friend of mine, my friend Doug, comedian, was telling me that they brought something on Congress's floor, and it basically was saying like Afghanis are like the number one demographic who are using food stamps, but they're like illegal aliens. I didn't know there were that many Afghanis in America. I don't know if this is true. I tried to look up the veracity of this claim. I was unable to find it. And I know a lot of you are Republicans, a lot of you watching this and probably thinking, this is great. We need to shut down the whole food stamp thing, right? Just starve them out. It's great. It isn't. It's not. Just think this one through. Think it through. Okay? How many Americans on food stamps, EBT, SNAP, whatever, how many of them do you think vote in elections? You think it's a lot or a little? Because my guess it's not a lot. Like single digits. I'll be charitable and I'll say single digits these people vote. These people, you just give them their food stamps and they go, thank you. Everything's great. No need to vote. I don't want to rock the boat, okay? What is a more surefire way to get people to vote than to take their free shit away? Especially when that free shit is food. Food that you just need to live. And now I'm sure some of these people are morbidly obese and it'll be a while before they die. But you know what I mean. Like, they really need to put an end to this very shortly before any real damage can be done. I saw they announced today that they're paying out 50% of the money this month by tapping into some contingency fund, which that's something, I suppose. I mean, it's still like, it's only $350 a month, I believe, per person. So if they're giving you $175, I guess if you have like, you live in rural America and you have a Dollar General, you could probably make that work. I feel like I could. You're just eating tons of rice and beans. A lot of rice and beans, but you can make it work. You can make it work. It's not ideal. It's not ideal. You're not eating honey buns. Maybe one honey bun. Tops. You get one honey bun for the whole month. But they are saying some states, they're saying it could be weeks or months before they get this money. Which means that even if this government shutdown ends tomorrow, they're like, for whatever reason, maybe if it ends tomorrow, then they don't have to deal with this contingency fund thing. But as long as this contingency fund is paying for it, they're saying it could take weeks before people get their food. This is enough to radicalize enough people to swing every election for the rest of for fucking ever. And look, a lot of people are abusing food stamps in the United States. There's no question. I didn't even know there's this whole thing where people sell their food stamps because they get them, they don't even need them. And then they sell them at a discount, right? No question. A lot of abuse, but a lot of people are not abusing them. And I'll tell you, the people who are abusing them, if they didn't vote, they're going to go vote now to get their fucking free money back. And look, we all know there's probably plenty of veterans, seniors, actual people just down on their luck who just need this to live. Like, I'm sure even if you say it's barely any of them, it's 10%, which is probably way more than that. It's still 4 million people that just are like, I know there's food banks, but you have to assume that there's going to be a run on food banks. And so probably just you're turning these people into Democrats for life if this goes on too long, like for life. They will never go back. If they were swing voters, they're just like, I'm a Democrat for life, because the Democrats ain't never taking my honey buns away from me. Never. So this cannot drag on. It is not good for Trump if this drags on. And, maybe he can find the money elsewhere, some of the tariff money. I don't know. But we're so close to the point of no return on this one, where people's payments are being delayed, can't feed their kids, all that shit, where it can get bad real fast. So we'll see how this plays out. And we're going to go to the phone lines. very shortly. Before I do go to the phones, and we have Gerard, lovely Gerard Perry, on the ones and twos, taking your calls. And don't forget, we will be joined by Joe Atwill in 40 minutes. Make sure to like and subscribe. Really subscribe to the channel. I would really like to have 10,000 subscribers on this channel by the time it turns January 1st. That would be nice. I think I'm like 900 away. Just subscribe to the channel. I don't know what your problems are. Just do it. If you're an audio listener, again, leave a review. Spotify, follow, leave a comment. I've been responding to the comments on Spotify. So if you want to leave, I didn't even know they did that, but they have comments now on Spotify. And most importantly, I know none of you have friends, because if you did, you wouldn't be here right now. But if you have a friend, I bet one of you has one friend who likes podcasts, be like, hey, I know nobody likes call-in shows, but try this. And again, patreon.com/low-value-mail if you want to support the show. And we got a new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night, the show I hate the most. The show where I actually might Bud Dwyer myself on, if there's any show. But baseball's over. I'm sorry I missed last week, but it was like Game 4 of the World Series. Had to watch it. The series didn't end well, but what a game that was. What a game. What a fucking game that was. Holy shit. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Please unmute yourself promptly. Hello.
Hey, Danny, what's up? It's Charlie from Florida.
Charlie from Florida. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How you doing? Good. I'm glad you're still doing the show.
Yeah. Well, this show I'm doing. This show's humming along. We'll see about the bathhouse, but this show's I'm doing it. We'll see.
Yeah, I was like Cuomo. Can't do a good Cuomo impression, so.
Say that again.
I was call in as Cuomo, but I can't do a good Cuomo.
Oh, you can't
impression.
do a good Cuomo. Oh, that's too bad.
No, it's hard to do him.
Yeah. You just got to be like kind of a New York Italian dude, and you just talk really slow.
Yeah. Well, I am, but I grew up in Florida, so I lost all of my accent and everything.
Gotcha.
But so yeah, what do you think of the whole? I don't know. See, I don't really know much about like Johann Pastrami, whatever. I don't know as much about him, like what he stands for or anything. It's like everybody says that he's gonna like.
He's a democratic
housing
socialist. He loves socialism. I mean, he's a literal sociopath. Like before Trump came in 2016, like it used to be politics was like the most minor transgression would just disqualify you. Now nothing disqualifies you anymore. Like literally you have to get, it's like the old saying, whatever, he's like get caught with like a dead woman or a live boy. That's basically what it is. That's like kind of what it is now. Like if you can see all these videos where he talks in all these crazy different accents, like depending on who he's talking to, he has these like, but they're not like people are like, oh, it's like code switching. You're like, that's not code switching. That is like psychotic. That's like he goes to like Indians and he has like a full Indian accent where you're like, are you even from America? I guess he's not from America, but he grew up here at least. He probably formed his accent in America, but he like, it's just insane. I don't know. It's insane. But I mean, he's going to be the mayor. That's just, it is what it is. He's going to be the mayor, barring, I don't know what could possibly happen. I guess Polymarket could be wrong. Like I see the polls. The polls are like, he only has like a 4% lead. But the problem is that it's like Sliwa and Cuomo combined would beat him, but that's not how it works. And nobody's going to drop out. So,
well, it's kind of that's what like Kamala Harris kind of did too with the Indian accent thing. It's like the new thing where it's like it's like if you really need to like get more people to like you, you got to switch your accent like every couple of weeks, I guess. Or...
Yeah, but this is the thing. He hasn't done it recently. These are all these old videos that are coming up when he was like I guess he was like a city councilor or whatever. So there'd be these like he doesn't really do it now. It was just these old videos where it's like, and I get it. He grew up in Uganda. And then, or like he was up until he was like a kid, and I think he's Indian, but he just the accents are crazy, like the accents are legit nuts.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just know from the videos I've seen of like him dancing in the clubs and all that, and all these videos of him being asked all these different questions that don't really make a lot of sense. he always has the same look on his face, like he's trying to not shit his pants.
Yeah, he has this crazy like psycho smile that he does, or he's just like it like hurts my face to try and replicate it. I don't know, but he's just like he's very like polished. He's designed to be a politician for sure, and he was like a rapper and stuff. And I don't know. At this point, it's just like, I don't have any friends I don't think I have any friends in New York City who do not support him. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Well, I'm your age, and I grew up. I was born in New York, but I grew up in Florida and went to high school here and everything. I still have some family in New York City, and they're voting for him. The ones that live in Manhattan. But I mean, I kind of wanted to get your take on, because we hear all this stuff in Florida about New York City. Is it really is it as bad as people are portraying it, as far as like the violence and the?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look, so I say that. It's weird because, like, I'll say that, like, I've never really seen anything crazy, and I've never had anything happen to me. I've never, like, even come really close to anything happening to me. But then I was at the Comedy Cellar the other day, and I was talking to this woman who worked there, and we were talking about this because I think the debate was on a couple of weeks ago. This woman who works there, and she's like, "Yeah, I was last year," and she's like super liberal person who works at the Comedy Cellar, and we were talking about it, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't love Zoran just because, like, last year I was in Times Square and I was walking to get a Subway, and basically some crazy homeless guy, as I'm walking down the steps, pushed me down the steps for no reason." She's like, "I fell on my head, knocked out cold, like busted open her head."
Wow.
Jesus. Yeah, like busted open her head.
Wow.
And she's like probably, I guess she's like probably maybe, she's older than me for sure, like maybe in her 50s. But she's like, "I busted open my head.
Yeah.
Like, I had to go to court and all this stuff. And they basically like showed me the video just right before I was about to get pushed down the stairs, because she's like, I didn't remember anything. And she had to point out being like, yes, that's me in the video, essentially, because they found the guy. So they're like, yeah, that's me in the video, which was enough. But again, the guy was like, didn't know where the fuck he was. So it's not like he's getting some crazy jail sentence. He's probably getting some like mental health treatment, and then they just release him back out, and he just rinse and repeat, does it again. And Mamdani's definitely not going to be better for that. There's no question about that.
No.
Like, so, I mean, there might be more crazies, but like, but I know this comedian, this open mic comedian who he was on a train to Coney. He fell asleep on a train going home to Coney Island at like 2 a.m. and literally woke up to some homeless guy fucking slashing his face with a box cutter. Barely missed his eye.
God.
Like, he got him like right under his eye. And
that's crazy.
There's another comedian, Doug Smith. This was probably like 10 years ago. Got his face slashed, trying to stop a woman from getting raped. So, I mean, look, I know 2 guys who have had their face slashed. I know a woman who got pushed down the stairs, knocked unconscious, bust her head open. So it's like, it's not nothing, but it's also a city of 8 million people. You can't expect zero stuff to happen. So the question is like, how much are you willing to tolerate? I mean, the city would be way better off if they just opened up mental institutions. Like, nobody wants to do that, though. I don't even think Sliwa wants to do that. So
I saw a clip of Trump talking about that, I don't know, a couple months ago, or there was a clip going around of him talking about opening them back up and how he thought the mental health issue is a big issue that no one's really talking about. And it's a huge issue. And if they did, they would probably help, not just help a lot of people, but also keep the people safe.
Yeah, and the thing is, they used to just abuse, like, the reason they closed them down was because they would put them in there and they would like sexually and physically abuse these people. So you're like, can you just open up mental hospitals where they don't do that? Doesn't seem that hard.
Right, of course. And have normal protocols and normal.
Yeah. Sorry, you're cutting out there a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a great thing if they could do that. I mean, they could have normal treatment and maybe get people help before they, go crazy and do crazy things.
Or lock them away forever. That's fine too. I'm also fine with that. Yeah.
Of course.
Until they can prove that they can live in a society. But I don't think we're going to get that, unfortunately.
Well, it just seems too with the
Charlie,
was like,
Hey, Charlie, sorry, I got to let you go. You're cutting out and I can't hear you.
all right, man, take care. Good to
Later.
talk to you.
Later, Charlie. Charlie, everybody. All right, let's go to the Goob here. The Goob. Phone lines are open, everybody. 1-888-949-2969. Goob!
What's up, Danny? How's it going?
Very well.
So, I'm on the same shit, but before I try and convince people to bully trannies again, I know how much you love half-baked sketch ideas, so I have something even better for you.
All right.
Which is a half-baked idea for Ryan to do Man on the Street.
Okay.
Which is a petition to ban petition people. So, the more someone tries to ignore him or gets annoyed by him, the more he can double down and be like, that's what this petition is about.
Right.
And that's the entire idea.
Oh, okay. That's not bad. Yeah, there was, I can't remember. Steve Martin did a joke, something like that, like in the 70s. It wasn't petitions, though. It was, I can't remember what it was, but it was something like that. But anyways, that's not bad. I'll pass it along to him. I'll make sure he credits him if he does it.
So back to the,
assaulting transgenders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have what was it, Jay Jones and Graham Plattner. Jay Jones saying, kill the children, right? They're being raised to be little Nazis, so they need to die.
Yeah.
And how many people on the left condemned Jay Jones? Absolutely no one. They're still fully endorsing him. He's still in the race. Same thing with the guy who had 2 Nazi tattoos.
Hey,
they
I will
do not
say,
care.
Keith Olbermann, the most psycho Keith Olbermann, kind of showed that Graham Plattner dude the door. He goes, that's it. And not that Keith Olbermann is some voice of reason, but Keith Olbermann was like the only person who I saw who was like, yeah, this is disqualifying. Hit the bricks. Right.
They killed Charlie Kirk for being a Nazi, but someone with multiple Nazi tattoos, totally fine. Which again is, the point that I'm making is that the left does not care.
No, they care about
power. They don't call you a racist because they actually, right. It's all about power.
Yeah.
The telling people not to say retard was never about protecting retards. It was always about control.
Sure.
And that control is only allowed to exist because of the right. Because look at how many people condemned the racist group chat, right? You have J.D. Vance who gets it. He goes, I don't fucking care. You've got Matt Walsh who gets it. You seem to get it on the Boys Cast, right? You're part of this culture war now.
Yeah.
You're doing what I'm suggesting, which is not caring about, people
I thought
saying
you were
these
going to
words.
say assaulting transgenders.
It's entirely the right that gives the power to these words, not the left. The left doesn't care about these things.
But the right seems to be figuring it out. That they go like
slowly. They need to figure it out a lot quicker.
Yeah, they seem to have figured it out where they go, yeah, we don't need to. And I will say with all the social media companies, like kind of now, no longer just being totally occupied by leftist ideology. There is a lot more that can be done now, because it used to be you make a whole stink of this on Twitter and they go, yeah, we're just kicking you off Twitter. How about that? And now you can kind of just do whatever you want. Although I don't know if other people have experienced this. My Twitter algorithm is way different. I go on there now and I'm just like,
it's been changing recently. Yeah,
it definitely. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I don't get fired up on Twitter anymore. I feel like Twitter, the raising my fucking blood pressure is just whatever they did, it hasn't been doing that lately. And it kind of goes, yeah, they must have changed the algorithm, because I don't see anything anymore that is just, really gets me worked up.
Yeah, they've tweaked it a few times over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, you asked me last time we spoke about bullying people for race mixing, and that's probably not something I as an individual would do much, but I sure as shit will never condemn anyone for doing it. I sure as shit won't condemn anyone for doing it, right? The right has to stop.
For bullying people for race mixing?
The right has to, the left protects its warriors because they understand this is a war. They won't even, condemn someone for calling for the death of children, yet you have the right doing these purity spirals going, no racism, no, none of this. And it's bullshit. It has to stop. Even if it's not something you personally support, you've got to stop condemning the right. You've got to stop giving the left the control and the power that they have.
You don't like this big infighting with the whole Nick Fuentes stuff? This seems to be a big thing on the right now, is basically Like the right really does seem,
Yeah,
at
that's
least
gotta
online, seems to be fracturing. But I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people are like, yeah, I don't want some guy who glorifies Hitler and is racist, like representing my cause. I mean, you're just saying that they just need to be
right.
some
But do you want the
monolith,
left to win? What's a worse option, right? What's worse, becoming like the UK, or oh no, some theoretical problem of like, what if in 20 years, this Nazi shit gets out of hand and people are, being too racist? It's like, well, that's a theoretical problem that doesn't exist and is so far away from existing. And yet we have very real problems right now where we are, heading steadily towards becoming like the UK. Even, just look at Michigan, shit's fucked. And so there's very real problems right now. And so I don't care about these theoretical issues that might happen in the future if, oh no, we go too far. We're so far removed from that, it's not even funny. We need to go a hell of a lot further than we're going now. And if that becomes a problem in the future, we can address that then. But I'm not going to
but I don't agree with you,
take action because of some theoretical threat.
Yeah, but I don't actually agree with you because like there are a lot of normal people who see this stuff. If the right starts embracing this stuff, they go, yeah, that's not me. I don't subscribe to that. I guess.
Okay.
I guess I'm an independent.
How many people are,
that's a lot of
how
people.
How many people are going to vote for Jay Jones who wants to kill the children? It's a lot of people voting for Jay Jones who wants to kill the children.
Yeah.
Right. I understand what you're saying about optics and everything.
I don't know the
and it's a
whole
valid
context
point.
of the kill the children thing. Was that just a joke in a text thread? Just
no,
like
he
right-wing stuff?
made very clear that he was absolutely sincere.
That he wants to kill children.
Yes. So specifically, he was talking about his opponent's children because his opponent's a Nazi. And so their children are being raised to be little Nazis. And so they need to die too.
And that was like the only way they would get the message on gun control or something?
No, I don't think it had to do with gun control, but like in this conversation, it was made very clear by him that like, no, I'm not joking. I actually mean this. Yes, the children should die because they're going to grow up to be Nazis.
Yeah.
And that person is going to receive a shitload of votes, right? From these quote unquote normal people. And so, I hear what you're saying about optics, but it doesn't actually reflect reality. Condemning your side does not help you. It helps the other side. That's just how it works. That's why the left has continued to gain power and momentum.
Yeah, you know what? This is kind of a tricky one because I do agree.
You have to look at reality.
I do agree with you that like the condemnation thing, like, yeah, it definitely does help the other side. But I guess these these really political people, they think more past a single election, and they're just like, we might not have votes to win any election if we go down this route in 8 years from now. Whereas maybe right now, it's, maybe not the best case scenario, but they're like, I think they're looking a little further along than this. And they're thinking like, if we embrace this and like Nazi shit and Nick Fuentes, they're like, we won't have a party. Like we just look at what happened to the Democrats. The Democrats went from, kind of, I want to say dominating, but I mean, they definitely have the overall lead in culture wise. And then they just absolutely, after this last election, they were decimated. People were just like, what even is this party anymore?
Are they? Half the population still believes that men can be women.
Yeah.
You're talking about, oh no, Nazis are off-putting. We have people denying,
I don't think that's true.
Objective reality. It probably isn't half.
It's like 20%. It felt like more because you got in trouble for saying
that. I think you're right.
But it's not true. At least 80% of the population does not think that.
I think you're right on that point, which is why that 80% needs to become more vocal.
Yeah.
They need to stop being afraid. They need to start,
I think
confronting people who are insane.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, the left should police themselves, but I mean, you would hope to think, I don't know, Jay Jones is what? He's in Virginia. What's he running for? He's running for he's going to be Attorney General of Virginia. So I mean, I don't know how powerful. That's obviously not a nothing position, but I mean, he's not.
It's a pretty big position.
Yeah, it's a big position. It's a big state, but that's a pretty,
especially with opinions like
state.
That.
Yeah,
I mean, for an Attorney General, that's like.
That is, again, this goes back to what I said though. Prior to Trump, all this shit would have been disqualifying. And Trump basically just, I don't know if it's the Overton window, but he just basically made it where you can be a politician. You can say all sorts of crazy shit now, and it's not disqualifying. That would have been 15 years ago, that would have been a completely disqualifying statement if that happened. Now you're just like, yeah, just people are flawed. They just kind of say that, and they go, yeah, people are flawed. And yeah. But no, I know what you're saying.
I want to make one last point,
yeah,
though.
Go ahead.
Which is that, I've stressed that these people want you dead. And I mean that 100% sincerely. And here's the thing. It's like, if you have a schizophrenic... Dead and gay. Yes, they do. If you have a schizophrenic shooting up a kid's cancer, ward in a hospital because he believes that his bullets cure cancer, that schizophrenic's intentions are good. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter what his intentions are because he's shooting children.
Fair.
Right? He needs to be stopped. And so you can do your mental gymnastics all you want and go, well, grandma who votes for Jay Jones, she doesn't want me dead. She's a sweet old lady. She thinks she's doing the right thing. And it doesn't fucking matter because the reality is they're building a future. They're building a world where you and your children will have no future. And so, regardless of the intentions, they do want you dead. The result is that you will be dead and that you must respond appropriately to that. You can't, go, oh, well, she doesn't actually want to hurt me. She's just creating a future in which I will be hurt. So I have to forgive her and not act as if that's the reality. You can't, ignore the reality, which is the future that's being built as a future where you and your children have no life.
So we're punching trannies and we're punching grandmas.
Absolutely.
That's the full list. All right, Goob, I gotta let you go. I got a bunch of other callers we could talk about.
All right, thanks, man.
Goob, everybody. All right, let's take another call here. Don't call in anymore. Phone lines are closed. I don't know if I'm going to get to everybody right now, but I'll do my absolute best. What do we got? Oh, 6 calls. Ooh. In Hot Water says, Hitler did have aura. It was the problem with him. Does YouTube not let you write Hitler in a super chat? Is that why you have to do it space like that? Howling Lubu says, I wish it was $7,000. I don't know what that means, but I also wish it was $7,000. Please unmute yourself, people. Now I do the thing where I mute a second person and they both unmute themselves at the same fucking time. Happens every time. Of course that happened. As I said, hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
This is Donnish.
Donnish.
Danny, on the last Boys Cast, you made the funniest joke, the plumber influencer. Show crack. That was hilarious. I don't know if someone missed that, but that was
thank you.
Super funny. So as far as, like, as we mentioned, New York City full of progressives.
Yeah.
The Bernie bros, had that fantasy and it never got to come true. And then this whole debate where people were saying that, oh, you're going to end up like Venezuela. And they're like, oh, no, this is different. This is democratic socialism. So I guess this is like a little chance they get. Obviously there's the repercussions that you mentioned, with the crime and stuff, but at least, some kind of chance.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have their chance. Again, it's certainly possible. Like, everybody's fully discounting the possibility that maybe it works out okay. Maybe it's, again, like, de Blasio got elected a second time. Like, I don't think he did that great of a job. Obviously, it's a huge city. There's so many moving parts. Like, I don't think one guy can really fuck it up. But then I also thought that about Justin Trudeau in Canada, and he really fucked the country up. But, Prime Minister has way more power, like the head of state versus the mayor of a city. So I don't really know. Oops. We have 2 people unmuted right now. I don't really know exactly, but we're going to find out.
I'm sure you and Ryan kind of mentioned that, like, oh, since you guys are from Canada and maybe they've applied more of this, I don't know, Keynesian or whatever policies that you guys can say, oh no, we've had this here, and then I don't know, I hear negative things from Canada from you and Ryan, so I'm not saying it will end up that.
Look, his main thing, like, first off, Mamdani's main thing is affordability, which a lot of people in New York, that is their number one issue, way more than crime, I would think, is affordability. And he can't make food cheaper because food is just a commodity. Like, there's a national price for food. Like, there's no scenario where you're like, oh, eggs are $1 a dozen in New York City and they're, $8 a dozen in Massachusetts or something. That's just not how it works. Like everybody's prices for commodities are fairly similar. Like every price in America is, obviously there'll be discrepancies because rents are lower or whatever, and like certain inputs like labor, but for the most part, prices are the same here. So all you're really talking about is housing. And if you make housing cheap enough in New York City, more people will move here and just raise the price back up. Like that's all that happens. Like they'll just people will be like, oh, I can finally afford to live in New York City. Like, how many artists live all over the United States who go, I would love to live in New York City if it wasn't so expensive. So you're like, okay, we'll make it cheaper. And then they all just move here and drive the price back up. I mean, it's expensive because these people did that in the first place. Like, that's why it's like
that foundational point. We always forget about that point. That's
like, I don't know that many people who live here who are from here. Like most people, granted, I'm in my little comedy bubble. Most people I know who live in New York City are not from here. Like almost all of them. Like I know a few people who are from here, but most people are not from here. So if you just make it easier to live here, then more people will come here, and it goes back to being expensive. So, I don't know how Mamdani just magically fucking waves his wand and fixes that. I feel like he can't. Some people will benefit from it. I'm sure some people will, luck out and benefit from it, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be complaining if they had rent controls similar to what they have in Toronto. Like, I mean, I'm not going to complain about that. I really don't see how, like, landlords will get killed if that happens. Maybe they won't want to build more. That's certainly possible. Although they have that in Toronto and they're building nonstop. So again, maybe the economics are different here. The red tape, I don't know. But I
appreciate your nuanced positions that you're not too like ideologically set on something. But speaking of that, I hate to dunk on another scrope, but just the last comment of the last person, but the way that they were describing the other team, they just want to kill it. It just reminded me of how I used to hear liberals say that, people that vote for Trump, they're not just voting for Trump, they're voting to like eliminate us, people of trans, indigenous, whatever. And I try to tell them, like, no, you're like, they're just voting Trump because that's what they think their best interest is. It doesn't mean that they're trying to like murder you. It just sounded like that,
I was meaning to say this with that whole like Virginia attorney general with that grandmother voting for him. And he's like, she wants to kill you. It's like, no, she just doesn't want Trump. That's why people are letting this stuff slide, where some guy has these texts where he's like saying he wants to kill children. And they're like, that's still better than Trump to so many people. They're like, whatever the shit that I see Trump doing, I don't want that where I live. And if I have some guy with some questionable text messages, you're like, that's fine. Because Trump to them is way fucking worse. So there's also that. Anyways, I got to let you go. Good talking to you, man. Donnish, everybody. That was our diversity quota for the show. Let's take another call here. This time we're going up to Canada. Hello. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, bro. This is Justin.
Justin. Where are you calling from, Justin?
Where am I calling from? I'm calling from Canada. Somewhere.
Canada. Tough loss, huh?
It's tough shit, yeah. I thought I'd just call.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've got an idea for you, whether, it's more suitable to actually do, like pop off and kind of go viral for a sec, or just like do as like a video or something.
Okay.
You should do Jews for Mamdani.
Jews for Mamdani.
That'd be a good idea.
You know what? I already missed the boat for that because the election's tomorrow. I actually, you know what? It's funny. I wanted to do a Hot Girls because there's this whole thing, Hot Girls for Mamdani. And I wanted to like put on a wig and do like I'm a hot girl for Mamdani, but the fucking shirts were sold out. You literally couldn't buy the shirt because that I thought would be pretty funny if I'm just like me with a beard being like hot girls for Mamdani rise up. But I could. The shirts were sold out. That's how much fucking energy is behind his campaign. Where like you can't even buy.
I know, right? Like I did listen to the boys cast, and both you and Ryan were just like glazing him. Like, you guys love him. Obviously not for real, but you're sounding enough on board where it's like it's not going to infuriate you to like kind of help him. Like, if he did do something like this for Mamdani, like you basically accept that he's going to win anyway.
Well, that's more of what it is just like he's going to win.
Yeah.
Like, some people can, be all upset about it and whatever, but like he's going to win. That's just that's over. I mean, I don't want to dissuade people from voting. Like, go vote. Like, maybe if enough people who are on the fence don't, I don't know. Maybe it can swing it, but I'm just like, he's gonna win. I don't generally like to get politicians like I'm not the type of person like a politician goes, I'm just miserable now because some guy's the mayor, especially not a mayor. I'm just like, I don't like, most of his policies don't affect me. I'm not super poor and I'm not super rich. So none of this is going to affect me. Like, I don't take the bus. Honestly, maybe if all those people who are like fucking on the subway being crazy, now they go over to these free buses, maybe actually it makes the subway a little more pleasant of an experience. But the subway has never been an issue for me. And I'm not going to get any tax.
I will never
get any tax
I will
breaks.
never go into a New York subway. Like, I would do so much other, like, classically considered dangerous stuff before I ever go into a fucking New York subway.
It's
That's
fine.
crazy.
It's fine. It's honestly fine. I mean, look, I don't take it out in the Bronx. Maybe there's some people who are like, because again, you see a lot of shit happening and you go like, that's in the Bronx. I've been to the Bronx, unless I go for a Yankees game to the Bronx, which doesn't really count. Like, I've been to the Bronx once in my life. Like, I have no business in the Bronx. I don't go to the Bronx. Like, again, it's, not to make this a race issue, but when you look at the crime stats, it's like white people actually do pretty fine with crime stats. It's actually people of color, aka colored folks, who are the ones who are actually the most likely to be a victim of a crime, and they live in areas that are not generally white. And I'm just like, it's not really an issue for me. And I'm sure some people will go, great. But I'm like, a lot of his policies, I'm like, I'm not going to his fucking grocery store. He's only opening up 5, one in each borough. I live in Queens. The one in Queens will probably be an hour from my house. So it's just like not affecting me. Now, maybe he does some really bonehead shit with the city, like where, maybe the taxes go up a lot. I don't know. Like, I'm sure that's possible, but like, I'm not going to be affected by any of this. Like, it's not going to affect me.
You're basically saying what's the worst that could happen. And that's like the classic. That's like the famous last words of. I
know. I understand that, and there is an element of me when I say all this stuff where you go, there's always going to be stuff you can't predict happening. Like, I get that, and there can be second, third order effects of this stuff that nobody can really understand. Like, look, if all these rich people do move out, then you're like, okay, well, the city has a giant revenue loss that they need to make up somehow. And maybe I am going to be the victim of that. Certainly that's possible. Yeah. But again, I'm like, I did live in New Jersey for 2 months. My wife hated it, but can always go back to New Jersey. Now, granted, if everybody goes to New Jersey, then it'll be super expensive there and kind of be pointless.
I thought New York was like doing terribly financially anyway. Like, wasn't that like what the whole issue was like a couple of years ago with that was from the migrants, because Texas was shipping in all the migrants and New York City was financially supporting them, but Trump shut the border down, so that problem's kind of solved. So that problem doesn't really migrants were literally bankrupt in New York.
Well, the migrants were getting bused to New York. They were coming in by literally like caravans of them on a daily basis. Texas was like, we don't want all these people. So, and if these liberal cities, sanctuary cities, love migrants, then here you go. And New York City has a law where they have to support them. New York City has a law where they have to house every person who needs housing by law. So these people show up and they go, all right, we got to find somewhere for you to live. And that shit is expensive, like really expensive. And, the city was like, we need money from the federal government. The federal government's like, fuck you. There's only so much money to go around. I don't know. That's essentially what happened. But again, the migrants are gone. I don't know the city's finances, but I can tell you as someone who lives here, I constantly see them paving streets. They're constantly working on the subway. Like the city is not like falling into disrepair by any stretch of the imagination. It's doing fine and it's not dangerous. At least I've never had any issue with it. Anyways, I got to let you go. I got to take another caller, but thanks for calling.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, good.
Okay, we'll take one more call. I'm sorry if I didn't get to you. I apologize. Many apologies. But call in. Hopefully we'll do open lines at the end of the show and we'll get to you. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
This is Jared from Indiana.
Jared from Indiana. What's up, man?
Oh, nothing much. I was listening to you guys talk about the whole Mamdani thing. Is that his name?
Yeah, Zoran.
Yeah. Well, I was like thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't know why everybody's like so upset about it. Really, like most people like aren't even from New York, and it's just a mayoral thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, like, I think you should like, I mean, not you, but like the royal you should like look at the positive. Like, you kind of get a nice little science experiment for free, and you just like let him do his thing. And then if he fucks up super bad, I mean, from my perspective, and keep in mind, I'm in Indiana, like I don't know nothing about New York, but at the same time, like from my perspective, it's just kind of slowly rotting anyway. So like, wouldn't it be better to just like let him do his nonsense that he's doing? And then if it goes really bad, then people would have an aggressive shift the other way.
I mean, I'll say this, like when a tech company is like trying out something new, they don't try it out in fucking New York City, okay? They try it out in probably somewhere where you live, because they're like, if this doesn't work out, the damage is minimized. I mean, to try out this experiment in the largest city in America, probably not the place you want to try it. Like, again, like, I'm not too worried about it, but obviously people who live here or don't live here like yourself are like, yeah, let's like try it out. And you go, okay, I probably want to try it out in maybe like a smaller city.
Oh no, I mean, I don't. From what I've heard of them, I don't like them. Like, I don't really support anything I've heard them say. I'm just saying, like, what, like, if everything's going, like, people aren't gonna vote, like, they're not going to vote like Republican over there.
No, I mean,
like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to vote more conservatively. Like, if the only way to do that would be like, hey, see, like, let's just take it to the logical conclusion and then see what's really what.
Yeah. And again, a lot of this is he's popular because people hate Trump and they just want to, give a big old fuck you to Trump. So there's definitely that element to it. Yeah, I don't know. Giuliani was the mayor here. He was a Republican, but wasn't
that like in the 90s though?
That was in the 90s, and shit had to get so bad here for them to be like, okay, we need like an adult in the room to fix this, because it was real. Like, people were like, it was really bad. But that's what it took, and you know what? Maybe that's what happens with Mamdani is he gets elected and he fucks up really badly. And they go, okay, we'll try a Republican to kind of clean up his mess. But again, there's like, he needs a lot of cooperation with the state. I don't know. I'm not super worried about this.
No, I mean, I'm kind of optimistic. Like, I kind of think like it'll be the adults need to come back to the room situation. And then who knows, maybe it'll be like, yeah, but you know what? He was onto something with like the bus thing or whatever. Like, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what specific thing, but like something good comes out of it. And then also you get the, like you said, the adults back in the room, and then it works out for the best. But,
that is very optimistic of you, yes, but we'll see.
What can I say? I like to stay on the sunny side.
Sure, me too.
I was reading the caption of your show. Were you talking about Jesus conspiracy theories as well? Oh, okay. Well, I'll make it brief then. I was just gonna say, like, as you know, being a Christian fella, I was gonna say, like, in the Bible, it does talk about an end time prophecy about like false teachers and like itching ears and whatnot, and like people spreading false messages in order to like pull people away from the Word of God. So, I mean, I don't know if that counts as a conspiracy in and of itself, but, or like an anti-conspiracy theory, but it's definitely like an explanation of what's going on with all that. All right. Have a good one.
I'm just fine, Danny. How are you? Yeah. Uh, no, the documentary was made by Fritz Heede. He does sort of kind of edgy documentaries, and he approached me and made the documentary, and I approve of it, though. I think it's a very good film. It's kind of makes the theory easy to understand, and it's been very popular. I mean, I've been told that 10 million people have actually watched it. Yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, yeah, right, right. Well, that's my book was published by Ulysses, which is Berkeley imprint, and they came up with the title. It's not the one I would have used. I bought the rights back to the book at a certain point because it was starting to become, too popular just to not have control over the commissions, basically. And I thought about changing the title, but the documentary had been made, and there was just momentum to keep it. Um, Really,
What would you have preferred to have called it?
I would have called what I wanted to call it was "Cruel Joke," the Roman invention of Christianity.
That's pretty good.
Right. I mean, I thought was just a more accurate. And I think they wanted to put the term conspiracy in because they thought it would boost sales. But
Yeah.
there is obviously there's a conspiracy that is attached to my theory, but it's not the theory itself. I mean, I don't, talk about sort of the activity of the Flavians as they conspire to invent Christianity. My theory is basically interpretive framework of the literature. And the thing that I show is that, which is a very simple thing, and it's just been completely overlooked by New Testament scholarship, is that the sequence of events in the Gospels are dependent upon a sequence of events in a military campaign. And this is through the entire adult ministry of Jesus. And in the book, I show that there are like 60 of these connections. And the important thing is they occur in the same order. This is how you can see that one story is dependent on another. That's the key, is that one story is dependent on another. And that this shows that even though we can never answer the question of whether or not Jesus Christ is a fiction or history, we can answer the question about the literature because we have it and we can analyze it. And we can see that it is basically what's called prefiguration typology. I'll explain that in a second. It's a fancy term, but it's not a historical genre. The story we have of Jesus Christ is not a group of authors trying to create a history of someone. It is a group of authors trying to create a genre of literature which is fictional. This is what it is. And oddly enough, they, in the very first page of the Gospels, there's actually a reason why they're organized Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in that sequence. But on the very first page, they give the reader a primer. And I'm just going to if you don't mind, just briefly go over it. It'll only take me like a minute to go through it so that the audience can understand really what the theory is. This is not from the adult ministry, which is linking into the military campaign, but this just shows the reader what the genre of the literature is. And if you are familiar with the story of Jesus, you know that Joseph,
I'm Jewish, so I'm obviously familiar with Jesus. I've never.
I know. Well, you see this, but you're probably more familiar with typology than you realize, because the Romans get this genre from Hebraic literature. This is actually a version of Hebraic typology that appears in, like, for example, the Habakkuk Pesher. And there are examples of this kind of typology in just in the basic Torah. And okay. I can show you, but so this is where the Romans come up with this. In fact, they're mocking it. This is what the story of Jesus Christ is, actually a mockery of the use of typology and the belief in typology that the Jewish rebels had in the first century. And so in the story of Jesus, you have, I'll just run, this very famous Joseph, his father, he goes to Israel, he goes to Egypt from Israel. You have the scene where Herod massacres the boys. A divine person appears to Joseph, and Matthew 2:20 goes, "They are dead who sought the child's life." Now you return from Egypt to Israel. You have the baptism, Jesus' famous baptism. He goes into the wilderness for 40 days, right? And here you have you have these quotes. He's tempted by bread, and he tells the devil, "Do not tempt God." And then he says, "Hey, the devil should only worship God." Well, that whole story is lifted right out of the Torah. Whole story is lifted right out of it. In Genesis 4:40, Joseph, this is where the name comes. Jesus' father being called Joseph is not a historical element. It's just because they're following the storyline. So Joseph goes from Israel to Egypt. The Pharaoh massacres the boys. In Exodus 4, you have the quote, "All the men are dead who sought the child's life." This is a verbatim quote that ends up in the New Testament. So they have this very verbatim element of it to sort of help orient people. Then the family returns from Egypt to Israel. Excuse me, not the family. The Israelites return from Egypt to Israel. You pass through water. This is a kind of a typological linkage to the baptism in the New Testament.
This is the story of Passover.
Yeah, it's the story of Passover. And they even have a quote where in Exodus 14, you have the statement, "Out of Egypt I have called my son," and the Israelites are being referred to as God's son by God at this point with that quote. That quote is in the baptism story of Jesus, just so that everyone can understand who is kind of aware of the cryptic language. They can understand that this is linking one story to the other. Then you go into the wilderness for 40 years. Now, Jesus goes in for 40 days. Moses goes in for 40 years. You see, it's not verbatimism, but the 40 helps link, the typology, because This is showing that there's this divine pattern. And then the quotes that Jesus uses in the New Testament, they're all lifted right out of the Old Testament, right? Exodus 16, I believe, tempted by bread. Exodus 17, do not tempt God. Exodus 32, worship only God. So the key here, and what my role in New Testament scholarship is to show that sequence is the most important aspect of the typological genre. So you see in the little story I told you, if you had these elements just scattered here, hither and yon, you wouldn't be able to get it. But because the storyline is in the same sequence, right? You can actually then stand back and look at it all and go, one story is dependent on another. Now, what the author of Matthew is doing, is he's saying, look, Jesus is the new Moses. You see, he's the new Moses. There is this divine pattern. God is shaping his life in a way so that people will look at it and realize he's the new Moses. There's going to be a new covenant. Okay, so this is the typological structure is built using concepts, names, locations in the same sequence. It's that simple. In New Testament scholarship, after the conclusion of the story, they just forget about this genre, and sequence is never brought up as an aspect of something that should be studied in terms of its meaning for the literature. But what I show in Caesar's Messiah is that it is the key to understanding that Jesus' story was shaped just like the story of Jesus' pre-ministry, from Joseph going to Egypt all the way through his temptations in the wilderness. That whole passage of his life is shaped based on the story of Moses. I show that all of the events of Jesus' life were based on and shaped by the events of the Roman Jewish war that took place between 66 and 73. And all you have to do, in fact, because in the first version of the book, there was criticism which I thought was not coherent. So I tried to do a better job in the edition, the Flavian Signature edition. And I said, look, here is the text. I simply take one of the Gospels, Luke, because it has the most of the linkages. I said, here's Luke, and I literally take Luke and put it in a column, and then put the story of the war next to it. And I go, look, here it is. You can see when you stand back that one story has to have been based on the other. For one thing, many of the events are actually not contested. I mean, history knows that. I mean, that Jesus predicts Jerusalem was encircled with a wall. Will be encircled with a wall. This is a fact that's recorded in the Josephus' history of the war. Jesus predicts a temple will be raised. This event is recorded in the history of the war. Jesus says there's going to be an abomination of desolation. This event is recorded in the history of the war. Jesus moves from Galilee to Jerusalem. I mean, this is that journey is something that is actually recorded in the sequence of events that occurs in the war. So once you lay the stories side by side, it just becomes, in my opinion, impossible to not recognize the purpose that the authors had, which is to show that there is a divine hand over Caesar. Now, the Jews thought that God was guiding Moses, and the Romans are making the case with the New Testament that God is basically guiding Jesus. And what Jesus is doing is he is prefiguring this war. So all of his prophecies are made about the war. Jesus prophesies really nothing but events coming in the war. And the events of his life are actually representation of things that happened in the war. And so what the Romans are actually doing, and this is completely was revolutionary, and it created the bad blood between myself and quite a few New Testament scholars.
Sure,
is that I said, look, what you really have here with the New Testament, it's vanity. This is the vanity that produced the imperial cult. What they are doing is they are saying that when Jesus predicts that the Son of Man is going to come in 40 years, and he puts a little mathematical way of being able to resolve the question as when this guy's going to show up. He says, when he comes, you're going to have all these terrible things. And the Son of Man is a messianic title. So what he's saying is the Messiah is going to come in 40 years, and he's going to do all these terrible things to Israel. Well, that's exactly what happens. And this was the Caesar's way of basically taking all of the Jewish prophecies and saying, look, they're all right. They're accurate. They are all basically predicting, just as Jesus, looks into the future and sees stuff. We are what these prophecies predicted. And so in my book, I just show that this is a much better explanation for the origins of the religion than any that has been, brought heretofore. And the fact that this was the two stories were linked is literally self-evident. I mean, I have never had an exchange with a scholar that I could get to actually do that stand back moment where you look at the whole thing, in perspective, when he didn't admit, or she didn't admit, that, yeah, it does look like the stories are dependent. So we have an answer to the long-standing question of where did this weird form of Judaism come? Was the character of Jesus historical? And then how did this weird religion become the state religion of Rome? I mean, it's just, in a way, it's preposterous, right? I mean, why in the world of all of the different religions that Rome had in its possession in the first century, including the imperial cult, why would this religion end up being, the one that then would, be used as kind of a mind control system in the Middle Ages, in the Dark Ages? So, this is all in Caesar's Messiah, and I think the analysis is not only held up, but it's starting to actually, based on the emails and the exchanges of having with scholars, is beginning to finally crack into, what would be regarded as mainstream New Testament scholarship. I don't particularly care about that, frankly. I'm not an academic. I don't need the kind of money that is available in New Testament scholarship. Isn't something that, I'm fortunate financially. I don't need to make a living by selling books. So I brought the book out because I thought, it would be something that would have value to people. And I was worried. I mean, I was very worried that would also interfere with the Christian faith and some people who actually get value out of it.
Sorry to cut you off. How did you get started on this?
Well, no particular reason. I actually got started in this way. I was a businessman, had a lot of businesses, sold my businesses, had some time, wanted to do research in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I was raised in Japan. I went to a Catholic military school. Study of the Gospels, was very focused, and so I had a strong impression of the character Jesus. I had fallen away from religion in general, as a young man. So by the time I had sold the businesses, that was something I wasn't interested in. But I was interested in the character of Jesus, and I had one question. I was curious about. Is I'd read the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I could not understand how a militaristic, xenophobic, and genocidal form of Messianic Judaism could coexist side by side with what's called Roman Christianity and Jesus Christ. I mean, Judea is a very small area. How could they have gotten along? They were in the same area at the same time. So where is the documentation of the interaction? So that was just simply the question I wanted to answer, is that how could they have gotten along? I had the position I took the position that Roman Christianity's history was real as they presented to us. We have the Dead Sea Scrolls. They describe the sect. How did these two groups get along? That was the question I was curious about. And in trying to answer that, I started reading Josephus. He's the only historian of the era. And in reading Josephus, I began to see, passages that I thought was Josephus mocking and making fun of Christianity. And in fact, in a way he is. And I was able, I think, to see a little more clearly than most people, because I did have this background in kind of the New Testament, since I'd studied it virtually every day at the Catholic military school. So I was really aware of the events, described in the New Testament. And so I saw this stuff in Josephus, and one day, for no reason, I just had this insight. I go, there's something about these passages, these parallels that I see are linked somehow. I realized they're occurring in the same order. And that was really the insight. I realized that, look, they're occurring in the same order. And because I knew that they were occurring in the same order, I then had the capacity, because there's obviously a predictive relationship, once you understand the sequence, you can start looking to see where all the linkages are. I started seeing all of the parallels and the linkages I was missing, and then I could see all 60 of them sitting there. And so at that point, this was like in 93, 94. I just put my analysis. I'd written up the analysis. I put it away. I didn't really think it'd be particularly of value. I realized that academics might be interested in it, but and I eventually felt guilty about not bringing it out. I just brought out a short little pamphlet that I advertised, just trying to get scholastic input. And a well-known scholar, a guy named Robert Eisenman, read it, and he developed a relationship with me, and he's the one who actually convinced me that it had to be published, and he helped get it published. So that was kind of how it came about, that someone who had a background in software and and just deal making ends up as with a book like Caesar's Messiah. It was actually kind of all weird, frankly.
Interesting. And what do like the critics say of your work? Like, I'm sure people don't agree with you.
Well, I mean, there's if you I mean, the fact you have to ask the question is virtually answers it in and of itself, because if there was criticism that was like, damning and coherent.
Like, did they say it's a coincidence?
Yeah, I mean, what
coincidental?
they would say is, here's how the criticism go. They'll take one of the parallels and they'll say, look, this is not coherent. Here's all the ways it doesn't work. It would be like them saying in the little version I gave you, that, well, Atwill says it's 40 days, but look, it's 40 years over here. You see, he's wrong. And it's because they don't realize that the parallels, many of them are not verbatim. They have just elements. There's enough similarity in them so that when you lay them out in the pattern, then everything becomes visible. So this is how the criticism of the critics has gone, is they will not look at the overall, sort of the nature of the literature, but rather will just look at one particular parallel. And then they will criticize, like my Greek isn't good, even though it's perfectly good enough for the kind of analysis I do, or that the parallel is not completely coherent, even though I would challenge them and I would say, well, look, is there enough parallelism here where if I put this, the parallel next to 10 other passages, and then you have the one that I'm claiming it's linked to, and we gave it to a bunch of random readers, don't you think that they would pick the one I select as the most meaningful? And they would go, yeah, but so what? I go, well, it doesn't mean anything if it's just one time. But if this occurs 60 times in order, then it's QED. I've made my case. See, it's the kind of analysis New Testament scholarship are just not, familiar with.
Right.
It is basically based on just the how improbable it would be to have parallels that would be noticeable that occur in sequence. It just can't happen accidentally. It's impossible. There's no other, there's no other two books in existence that you could find a sequence where you could lay them out side by side and have random people, agree with some kind of connection if it wasn't, these things weren't deliberately created.
And now, is the explanation that the Romans plagiarized it, or was it that they just saw this archetype of this is a thing that has been effective?
Well, they wanted
do that again.
What they wanted to do, there's two purposes. They wanted to pacify militaristic messianic Judaism. So they create the Jesus Christ as, he's very pro-Roman. He's, turned the other cheek. He's a pacifist. So this wasn't with the idea, in my opinion, to convert zealots who were going to rebel against Rome to become Roman Christians. But the purpose of the New Testament was to kind of stop the missionary activity. The Roman historians, they talked about how frightened Rome was that the messianic theology would spread throughout the empire, and then they would have a rebellion everywhere, which in fact occurred later on. But this is what they were trying to prevent with by creating Jesus Christ. And you have to remember, this is the era of the imperial cult. If you drive around Rome, you will literally see almost nothing that's ancient that isn't a monument to the deity of some Caesar. The imperial cult was the largest bureaucracy in the empire. The Caesars loved to represent themselves as God, and the Jews weren't buying it. They wouldn't permit Rome to put statues of themselves in the temple. And this is one of the big reasons that the war broke out. So the idea here was that we will create a religion that worships Caesar, but the people won't know they're worshiping Caesar. You see, it has a political purpose of, just as we have experienced Roman Christianity, of being kind of a pacifistic influence. Okay, so this is what the political purpose was, but the real purpose, the reason why they went to all this trouble, because believe me, if you read the book, you'll see that a lot of work has gone into the Gospels to create this typology. Very, very precise literature. So they put a lot of bucks into this thing, and this was because of vanity. They have the Arch of Titus. I'm not sure you're familiar with it, but it's in Rome. It commemorates the Roman victory over the Jews in 73 CE. And they have like the artifacts in the temple they're bringing back.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
Okay, so what that is, in fact, I mean, the New Testament is a literary version of the Arch of Titus. That's really what it is. It's just exactly as they talk about. In fact, they even have carved in stone, they have Vespasian the god and Titus the son of God. The actual Trinity is represented, at least the two people who were at that point in the religion were involved with it. They represent it there right on the Arch of Titus. So you have the God the Father and the Son of God, and they were the ones that destroyed the Messianic movement. So the Gospels are literally just a literary version of the kind of the political and religious views that are represented on the Arch of Titus.
Yeah, I heard you say basically the Gospels were essentially Roman propaganda.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, propaganda is it's a difficult term to define in some ways. I think that the propaganda side wasn't, in other words, as far as mind control, it was an important part of it, but Rome had other ways of controlling the subjects. It's really the vanity side that they wanted to promote. When Constantine, and this was in the beginning of the 4th century, when he went to make a state religion, he went with Christianity because, for one thing, it was his family religion. I mean, he was a Flavian. He actually, there's inscriptions of him talking about his family and their religious power, the original Flavians. He was in the 4th century, but so it's his family's cult. And he also recognized that the character Jesus Christ was ideal for mind control. He was going to set up the feudal system, and did. At least they began the process of doing it. And so, they put the kind of intellectual light of Europe out and replaced it with Christianity and the feudal system, which is a slave system. So this was the kind of, it's hard to say propaganda, but this was the mind control aspect of the religion, how they used it. And there's some kind of when you see all this in hindsight, there's some amusing elements to all this. I mean, for one thing, one of the titles that the Flavian Caesars held was Pontiff Maximus. It means the head chief of the Roman state religions. There was all these religions, but Caesar would often hold the title of Pontiff Maximus. He was the head of all of the religions. And this is the title then that the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church has. They kept the title, Pontiff Maximus. Moreover, the Flavians had a circus where they had religious kind of slaughters and things, which they also had the Colosseum, but they had their own circus, which actually was built by Nero, but when they deposed him, they took it over. And they had this like little area next to it where kind of the family cults would be honored. Well, guess where that is? That is literally, physically, St. Peter's. I mean, St. Peter's, the circle in front of the Vatican, is the Flavian Colosseum. It's where their circus was, and where the Vatican is now was where the buildings were that the Flavians had their kind of religious structure. So you can see they didn't even move or change titles. They just set the religion up and set it in motion. All of the original, well, the saints that are recognized by the Roman Catholic Church, the first ones, other than the apostles, who are stick figures in the Gospels, but the actual physical people, the saints, they're called the Christian Flavi. They're all family members and servants of the Flavian family.
And who was the Flavian family exactly?
Well, okay, the Flavians were a Roman kind of low-level patrician family that were military leaders. So the Julio-Claudians, the famous line with Augustus and Julius Caesar, they had gotten decadent. You have Caligula and Nero, and they are sort of man-god poets. Nero would come into a room and people would start singing about his divinity. Well, the Flavians were hard-scrabble military men, and they, I think, saw the Julio-Claudian line as out of gas. And so Vespasian, who had been in Gaul with his son Titus, they brought them, Nero brought them from Gaul after they had basically wiped out the Druids who had been rebelling. He said, look, we've got another religious rebellion in Judea. Can you go down there and clean up the mess? Vespasian, who was the head of the family, left his legions in the north to mop up the Druids, and he went down and took control of other legions that were in the south to deal with the Jewish rebellion. Now, he did a great job of this. They crushed the rebellion. Vespasian actually left midway through the fight, but they brought them down, and this created a dangerous moment because at that point, the Flavians now had military control over both legions in the south and in the north. This really hadn't happened before. The Julio-Claudians normally would only have their family members in control of the legions. Well, at this point in time, I'm talking 69 CE, the Flavians have control of the legions in the south who are dealing with the Jewish rebellion, and all of the legions in the north are aligned with them. And then the two great financial families, which were the Herods and the Alexanders. The Alexanders were a Jewish family. It was a family of Philo, who was the most famous Jewish intellectual of the first century. They were the Albarch, the tax collector of the Egyptian region. Well, they recognized that the Julio-Claudians had become decadent, and they were the ones that actually made public declarations for Vespasian to take the throne. Now, at that point, he had the money and he had the military, and he then went into Rome and he just mopped up, the kind of Praetorian Guard elements that the Julio-Claudians had. They all committed suicide. Vespasian and now the Flavians took over control of the empire, and they lasted for 3 Caesars. You had Vespasian, Titus, and then Domitian, and they became progressively more insane. There seems to be something about being a human god that is not good for your sanity.
I can't imagine.
And at the end, Domitian was insisting on being called Lord God. And I mean, he was making statues of him that were almost impossible to build. They were so high. So they had fallen into the same decadence that the Julio-Claudians did. And then, they were deposed, and you had an era of what's called Good Caesar, Marcus Aurelius, these guys who are not so completely insane, and the empire flourished for a while, and then finally Constantine put an end to all that, with the creation of a state religion, which basically took the intellectual light away from Europe. I mean, Rome in the 1st and 2nd century was right on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution. They had everything. I mean, they had mathematics, engineering, concrete, roads, aqueducts, they had libraries, with science. I mean, they were probably closer to the Industrial Revolution than Europe was in the 1600s. So they were right there. The Caesars recognized that they couldn't create autonomous power if the public had access to technology. And so, they decided to give us Christianity instead.
Interesting. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Phone lines are open, 1-888-949-29. #69. If you have any questions for Joe, we're going to go to first caller here. Please make sure to unmute yourself promptly. This is very interesting stuff. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, it's Jared.
Jared, what's up, man?
Oh, nothing much. I was just listening to this fella talking about the typography thing. I was going to tell you, Danny, don't listen to this guy. You got to give your heart to Jesus, buddy.
I'm Jewish. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
Do.
Agree to disagree.
I mean, I imagine this is Joe. I imagine this is a pretty contentious topic because I would feel like some Christians would take this as somewhat of an assault on their beliefs to some degree.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to be like any kind of way. I actually had some questions for. I'm sorry. What was his name?
His name's Joe. Joe Atwill.
Joe. First of all, I wanted to ask, okay, so you were talking about how the Gospels were written in a typography format. And earlier you were mentioning that, you were mainly referring to Matthew.
Well, the example I gave was from Matthew, yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe I misunderstood you. So you're saying that all of the Gospels are written in a typographical manner, and not just mainly Matthew.
That's correct. Yeah, the term is typology. It's a kind of typology. Typology as a word just means one story is based on another. A type. You see, you have a type. Something is based on another. So Jesus' story is based on. And everyone knows this, that there is Old Testament typology in the New Testament, right? I mean, when Jesus is like the miracle of loaves and fishes, he's like replicating Elijah, who did the same miracle, so there's a lot of little elements of typology that are completely agreed upon and understood by Christian scholars and just regular secular New Testament scholars. My contribution here is just to show that the whole story is typologic. All of the elements are.
And is it consistent throughout the entire thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, if the story is typological,
yeah,
I don't understand why that makes it false.
It doesn't necessarily. I mean, I showed that I'm a literary analysis, right? I mean, I look at literature and I try to present what I see as a coherent interpretive framework. So there is what I would say is there is dependency. There's dependency. The story of Jesus is based upon this other story. Now, what you make of this is up to you. I just showed the relationship, and it hadn't been shown before, and so I just brought it to the public's attention.
I think I see what you're saying. I just don't understand, because it seems like you're at least implying that it is a mark against the validity of the Christian claims. And I don't fully understand that, because even if you go back to the Old Testament, Danny, maybe you can back me up on this, but the whole pattern seems to rhyme. I mean, even you were talking about the Son of God, right? And then, Jesus being the messianic figure, kind of flew in the face of that. I mean, Moses kind of did the same thing. The pharaohs went as sons of God very often.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say to that point. I think if you read the analysis, you can draw any conclusion that makes sense to you in terms of faith. I have correspondence and connections all the time with devout Christians. We don't seem to have, kind of warfare. We're able to discuss this thing pretty easily. As far as what it does in terms of their faith, I don't really know. I think a lot of times they will just negate enough of my theory, or try to, that they don't need to come to the overall conclusion that I do. That's what I'm trying to say, though. I'm trying to understand where I mean, it seems like you're saying that the New Testament is
Roman propaganda, which I mean, and which to me says like you're saying that would make it not true if it's propaganda. Like propaganda is not typically steeped in truth.
Well, you're Joe. Like I had Robert Price on, who you know. Robert Price, when he was on, his premise was essentially Jesus Christ never existed. You're not saying that he never existed. Is that correct?
Well, what I'm saying is that that question is not possible to be answered. We don't know. I mean, and it's also semantical. Let me just explain the problem here. I mean, Donald Duck was based on the next door neighbor of a cartoonist who had a duck named Donald that got into trouble all the time. It was a real duck. The cartoon Donald Duck, is it history because it was based on a duck named Donald, or is it fiction? Well, that's just a semantical question. It's not something that there's a meaningful answer to. What can be answered meaningfully is this a cartoon, and in our cartoon's history? So what I'm pointing out is that this literature is not history. It's not history. It is typology. It's based on other stories. So
why? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it. That is literally all I'm saying, is that the story of Jesus is not come down to us. The Gospels are not written they're not a historical genre. It is a
and that's what I kind of don't. That's what I kind of don't understand. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you. I really am. What I don't understand is if something is typology. I'm sorry if I keep giving that word wrong. If it's typology, then I don't know why it couldn't be both typology and an accurate thing. Like why couldn't the story of God be played out in a typological manner?
I'll tell you the truth, brother. I'm not the person who's really able to give parameters around God. Anything is possible. I had a very long discussion with a Christian scholar that concluded with him telling me that he expected an experiential moment for me to clarify my understanding of the Gospels. In other words, he thought that Jesus would actually appear in my life somehow and I would experience it. I don't, I simply, have no kind of energy for these sorts of discussions. I am as I present myself to the public in this regard, I'm simply a literary analyst, and my analysis is really not.
You're just saying you just notice things.
Yeah, I just notice things. I'm just a really good reader, and
that's most of us.
And that's it.
And I'm sorry if I'm coming at you like hard or something. I'm not. I'm genuinely curious.
You have every right to. I think it's good. I think that I don't really want to be in a position, and I never intended this, where I would be some kind of, person saying, well, the Christian religion is wrong. There's something flawed about it. I mean, I just honestly saw this relationship. I saw it. I knew I was right. No one had seen it, and I saw it, and I thought, in conversations with many people, it was just not possible to not present this to the public. So here it is, and what Christians make of it is up to them. I am not in the position of giving advice on this. I can only say that it is not history. The Gospels are not history. You may have an experience with Jesus that is on a personal level, something that is as real as anything else in your life. That's between you and yourself. I have no comment on any of that. Here's the literature, here's the analysis, and good luck to you, sir, if it makes sense.
No, yeah, no. Okay, so I guess just one more question I have is if all the things that it says are true, how is it not history and typography?
Well, you can use parts of history. It's just like Donald Duck. I mean, I don't mean to be denigrating. I'm just using that as an example because it's easy to understand. With Donald Duck, you have a history. You've got a duck. It's real. and the name Donald. However, the cartoons are not history. The duck does not talk in English. You see,
Probably didn't wear a shirt either.
Yeah, it doesn't wear a shirt, and so the
that
genre,
shirt is canon.
right? So what I'm saying is the genre has not been recognized. See, it's not. People have believed it's history, and therefore they've made certain conclusions about it, particularly conclusions concerning, using the text as a basis for a religion. I'm simply saying, no, this is really not history. We cannot answer the question about is Jesus historical, but we can look.
So
at
you're saying it's not history because you can't prove the claims, is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying it's not history because I can show the story it was based upon. I can show the story that the story of Jesus was based upon.
If it's similar to another story, doesn't that? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Danny.
Well, I was just going to say, like, could there be elements that are historical and they kind of filled it in with some of this?
There could have been there could have been Jesus Christ that they rewrote. I mean, I can't disprove that. There's no way to falsify any of this. The historical claims are not falsifiable. There's not enough data, and it's just all we have is the literature. That's what we can do a real analysis on, and I can assure,
which is fairly limited. Like, that's a pretty limited amount of information, I imagine.
Of course, and that's what we have. Yeah.
So you're saying what makes it not historical is the lack of falsifiability?
No, I'm saying what makes it falsifiable is
I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding you, but like you keep comparing it to Donald Duck, and I'm just saying like there's like a claim, like if just because there's a story that's similar, one story could be true and the other could be false.
So Joe, if I can, essentially what you're saying is you have seen these parallels between the Gospels and the Old Testaments, which could not be a coincidence, essentially. Is that safe to say?
And the little story I gave at the beginning is completely uncontroversial. Christian scholars, everyone believes it. They understand. There's no question that what I explained is agreed upon by scholars.
And you're just saying there's so many of those that just make of that what you will, but this happens many times throughout.
Yeah, I'm just saying that what they did was the authors used that system of names, locations, and concepts in the same sequence, and the entire adult ministry of Jesus was built using that system. What happens is that, just as an example, in Matthew 4:10. Okay, so you have the statement, worship only God, and Jesus comes out of the wilderness. And where does he go? He goes to the Sea of Galilee. And what does he do? He calls his disciples together and he goes, don't be afraid, follow me and you become fishers of men. Okay, so that's the next story after Matthew 4:10 is that he gathers the disciples and he says, from now on you'll be fishing for men. So if you look in the story of the war, at this point, at the beginning, you have Titus coming to the same location, exact same location. What does he do? He calls all of his guys together and he goes, don't be afraid, we're going to win this thing. And then the Jews have gone out onto the Sea of Galilee and they're in boats. And he sends his men out, they sink the boats, and then they catch the Jews like fish. Okay? So fishing for men is actually describing the very next event, right, in Matthew. Now, I have said that if, for example, the story in Titus about Titus was actually in Exodus, and you had Jesus's, his saying, let's get together and we're going to fish for men. Every single person in the world who analyzed the gospel would say it's part of the same system. It's just the next story in this typologic system, which starts with Joseph going down to Egypt and the massacre of the boys and then going into the wilderness. And now you fish for men. But the fact is that story isn't in the Old Testament. It's Jesus is looking forward from now on. His prophecies predict, they don't look back. He says from now on, we're going to be fishing for men. And that story links up with the story that begins Titus's campaign. Now, you can easily contest this, and you can go, wait a second, this isn't, there's all these different things that could be occurring, and, but the fact of the matter is, and here's the thing, this is the fact. If you put the story about Titus's fishing for men at the Sea of Galilee, and you put it with like 10 other passages from the war, and then you got the passage over here of Jesus's talking about fishing for men at the Sea of Galilee, and you asked anybody, which one of these stories over here is most like what Jesus is saying here in the Gospels? It would be like 98%. People would go, well, it's the same location. There's the fishing for men. He talks about, don't be afraid and stuff. It looks like kind of the same story in a lot of ways. We're going to go with this one. It would be picked like I've done this actually a couple of times just for fun. It's a 98% winner. It still doesn't mean anything. It's just this one story
I suppose it could be either
forward. If you go forward.
Yeah, it can either be coincidental.
Thing occur over and over again, where you end up with something, with a story in the Gospels, in Jesus's life, which looks like and can be identified in a random sampling as very similar to a story over here. None of them have any power. They don't have any explanatory power at all. It's only when you get up to like 20, 30 in a row, suddenly you go, wait a second. See, this is the thing. It is the sequence. It is not any individual parallel that really is the power here. The sequence is what shows you that one story is built on the other.
And now these are both technically the word of God, both of these stories?
Well, it depends on who you're asking the question of.
Well, I was just saying maybe if he's just kind of like, God likes this theme.
Well, I mean, I think
for men, which is pretty sus.
Yeah, the Romans wouldn't have looked at the Torah as the word of God. They were creating a new covenant. But
right.
The fact is that the Christians would look at it in that way. They would see exactly that. They would say, well, the Old Testament seems like legitimate religion because it was predicting Jesus, and this event here in Jesus's life is real because Jesus is real. So they would just back calculate everything so it would make sense theologically, and that's kind of how Christianity went forward. It's just they accepted the typology from the Old Testament as indication that Jesus was divine, and then they really didn't study they didn't study at all the sequence of events, but they didn't really study like these small parallels like this fishing for men business. It just wasn't the kind of analysis that was done by Christians in terms of their text. So,
Jared,
if God,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. I was just gonna say God is like in the story of the Bible. I mean, especially if you look like to Acts and Romans and onward. I mean, it's a large part of it is preparing the literature to be preached to the Gentiles. So couldn't you look at it the other way, as the intention was on God's part to have that typographical kind of connection to be like, oh, this pretty clever idea you had. Let me flip it on its head. Like the Gospels kind of suggest Jesus has been flipping every other idea on its head.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I talk to God next, I'll bring this up. But the fact is that, faith is not something that my analysis is really supposed to interfere with. And I hear what you're saying, and these are legitimate questions and criticisms, but the fact is that you've got this problem in that the story of Jesus isn't history. Not to say Jesus wasn't real or didn't have some kind of divine character, whatever, I don't know. None of that is my business, and you just take my analysis if you're curious for what it's worth.
Yeah, like it shouldn't interfere with faith.
I really appreciate your time and answering my questions. It's been nice to speak to you. Danny, I expect to hear of your baptism within the next couple weeks.
I don't think my mom would like that. Jared, what do you think about Jesus fishing for men? All this seems kind of suspicious, no? A lot of fishing for men.
No, but that's what I was kind of trying to talk about earlier. I mean, there's probably, I wouldn't imagine there are not parallels. I'm sure everything he's saying about the parallels are true. But what I'm saying is like God would know of these parallels that exist. He would know of like Roman plans. Like it's more a matter of, I'm looking at it from the opposite perspective of where it's like, yeah, I'm going to include these things that happen.
You're coming from it from like everything's predetermined standpoint.
Well, I mean, God pretty much determines everything. I mean, it gets complicated when you equate that with free will and whatever. But yeah, basically, God knows everything that's going to happen. I mean, he's all powerful, omnipotent.
So you're basically like God was just playing the hits. Like when you go see a band.
Yeah, God. I mean, there's not an element in the Bible where God is not like through Jesus is not like flipping every system of power on its head and saying, "Look at this."
Sure. Interesting. All right. Cool, Jared. Good talking to you, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Jared, everybody. Yeah, I mean, I can see how this can be, Joe, a very contentious topic, especially when you're speaking with
brother, it could get. Believe me,
I'm sure you've had some knock 'em out, drag 'em out.
I can tell you stories. I mean, some of the stories are actually famous, but yeah, I don't do public lectures anymore. I stopped in like 2012 or something because it was like a food fight typically, and it's not. It's just not any fun for me. And I didn't think it was of any value really to the people who were, getting hysterical and whatnot. I mean, it's, they weren't really progressing their faith or anything, it wasn't like that. So it was just sort of silly. And, I think the way that the book has it's an amazingly popular book. I can't believe how much sales it does. But it's all word of mouth. I never promote it. I mean, my coming on your show would be promoting it, but it's only because I like your show.
Thank you.
But I don't advertise it or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's just word of mouth. The documentary created a lot of word of mouth, and then people read the book, and if they think it's coherent, then they would talk to someone else, and that's really how the book should spread. See what I mean? It's really the
kind
right
of like
way.
the Bible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, people read it, get value, and if they see value in it and have value, then they talk to someone else, and that person then has that as an introduction to it. And if someone reads it and he goes, "Nah, this is not for me," well, fine. Then don't mention it to some friend, and that's it works like that.
And I mean, the Bible is like the most famous book ever written, right? So
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
it's not crazy that people would, look into it. I suppose, like you have.
Yeah, it's actually kind of amazing to me that New Testament scholarship had never looked at the sequence of Jesus's ministry as having meaning, because just like in the little example I gave, sequence is so important in that example. You can't make any sense of the story without understanding the sequence. But if you go through all of New Testament scholarship, every book by every sequence is not mentioned as something that has meaning. But the fact is, sequence is the key meaning. It's how the literature becomes coherent.
And could these stories have been done out of sequence just to cover their tracks a little bit?
Sure, of course, but it wouldn't have been. They hit it really well. I mean, it hasn't been noticed before, at least in some people I think have got onto it, but by the public, it never caught onto it. So the purpose of the typology was to create a legacy moment, where the Caesars in the future would have the world recognize their genius in having created the fake Judaism. I mean, it's like
they're almost clues.
Yeah, they left it in there for a purpose. Believe me, when you read, if anyone does read the book, you'll see how elaborate the typology is, how much work went into producing it. This very precise method, and the stories are artfully crafted. It's a lot of work to produce the thing, and it was done just for vanity, just so they would have a moment in the future when some reader would notice all this stuff, and then the world would catch on to it and go, "My gosh, look at those Caesars. Look how clever they were." So what they hope to achieve with things like the Arch of Titus and the Colosseum and all the giant Caesar statues, all that stuff kind of failed, right? It fell away, you know, they decayed.
It's tourist attraction now.
But here they have something that'll really give them notoriety. You see, once this gets rolling, this is where they're going to get what they want, which is immortal legacy. That's really what they actually thought was valuable.
It's even almost, well, I don't want to say worse, but you know, the story went, you know, assuming that's what it is, went far beyond what they could have ever expected, yet they get no credit for it.
Never have imagined that Christianity would have had the kind of worldwide power it has. I know they didn't think that. I think they saw it would just be a kind of a replacement for Judaism, which they didn't really see as a religion with much of a future either. So it became the state religion. It got going as a, you know, world historical religion because of Constantine. He made the decision that they were going to use Jesus as how to keep the serfs in line during the Middle Ages.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't know the Middle Ages were going to occur. He just saw the feudal system needed some kind of monotheism to keep the people, you know,
some kind of framework.
Framework, which is, you know, just imagine what Christianity was in the 5th, 6th, 7th century. It was a horror story for the serfs because they weren't able to rebel effectively because they had this idea of you know, the pacifism that Jesus was, and of course, you know, like where he talks about obeying the magistrates, and they're there because God put them there. You know, Apostle Paul is that stuff. You know, where he's talking about the authority is a manifestation of God. So you're a serf, but be happy there, and you know, after you'll die, and then you'll be with Jesus. So there's it was just a, you know, for Europe, it was an absolute catastrophe. And the Reformation, I mean, you know, which kind of started the process to unravel all this, it was brought about because Martin Luther, he was tired of the dispensational sales. In other words, the Borgias were in Rome partying it up, and they would need money to keep the orgies
the
going.
Indulgences, right?
Yeah, and so they would sell the indulgences, and so they would come through and they would get the few coppers that the peasants had, and they would give them the indulgences so they could get out of purgatory quick. Well, anyway, one time the guys came through, and they'd just been through like a month before, and they said, "Look, you know, we're got some indulgences here," and the peasants said, "No, you know, forget it. I got a whole drawer full of indulgences," and they go, "No, these are special. These are for indulgences for sins you haven't created yet."
Right. Yeah. They're like, get out of jail free cards.
Yeah. So Martin Luther, you know, he was kind of a, you know, he was a legitimate sort of pastor guy.
Yeah.
He just said, this is making my job pretty tough, right? This indulgent stuff, particularly for sins in the future. So he just drew a line, and that, you know, that led to the Reformation, which eventually then, you know, branches out, and you have the kind of mind control of Christianity started to fade at that point.
Yeah, I read about half of it. A book by Eric Metaxas. He gave it to me. It's about Martin Luther. It's very good. It's like a whole biography. I had a question. So when was the last iteration of your book? When did it come out? I brought
out. It's called the Flavian Signature, which is the only version you can buy now. Is that version? I brought it out in I think 2014.
2014. And is that kind of like? Is there anything? Do you plan on any other revisions? Like, do you continue with this work where there's anything to add?
I've got I have like a couple books that'll be coming out, which are on kind of the later literature. It gets complicated because, you know, I brought out Shakespeare's Secret Messiah. And in the book, I pointed out that Shakespeare is basically, it's the same situation as we have with the New Testament. The scholars just completely don't understand the literature. They don't understand who the author is, and they don't understand it because they didn't understand the humor in the Gospels. The author of Shakespeare is a Jewish woman who is mocking and basically rejecting the stories in the Gospels. So you have like Titus Andronicus. And I'm not sure if I should like segue into like Shakespearean analysis.
So because I had a guest who was saying that Francis Bacon was actually Shakespeare.
No, it's Shakespeare is Jewish literature, and then the name Will Shakespeare. It's like a pun. See, it's Will Shakespeare. It's like like towards 1600, the Jews had been kicked out of England. There were Marranos, though, who were still practicing Judaism, but they had to do it in secret. And this one family, very musical family, they're providing like the musical instruments and the music for the court. They had this, woman who was born into the family who knew about the typology. This family had understood the typology. There are other members of it that actually did some paintings representing the Flavian humor. Well, anyway, she wrote, like, for example, Titus Andronicus. Well, like Titus Andronicus, I knew there was some connection here because Andronicus is obviously relating to Andronici. He was one of the guys who sacked the Temple of Jerusalem. Titus Flavius is one of the other guys. There's like 3 people who's ever done this. And so Titus Andronicus seems to be making some kind of comment about perhaps Titus Flavius, right? I immediately, when I started reading it, I recognized at once that actually it is about the Flavians and about their creation of Christianity. And like, what caught my eye was that she had this passage in Titus Andronicus where, she wrote what is the brother of Titus doing? And the guy says, well, he's by himself and he's killing flies. And Titus goes, why is he doing that? It doesn't become the brother of Titus to sit alone and kill flies. And the guy says, well, he's alone and he's killing flies. Well, those who are classically trained will know that Suetonius had written about Domitian, Titus's brother, that the only thing he really loved to do was be by himself and kill flies with a stylus. So you can see that the author was making some kind of comment on the Flavians. And then when you get into the story, you'll see that there's a crucifixion, that a character Aaron and Josephus and Joseph of Arimathea, you'd have to read Caesar's Messiah. So they replicate the crucifixion scene. And then Titus, he goes and he gets all of the Gentiles' noblemen to eat human flesh. Well, this is a reversal of the humor in the Gospels, in which, the Last Supper is basically a cannibal feast, which is being, given to the apostles, but they're unwitting. They don't know it's occurring. You have to understand the typology to recognize what the Last Supper is based upon. Well, anyway, the author of Titus Andronicus, she saw this, and so she has Titus represented, but it's a reversing. You see, it's where the Jews are taking a vengeance upon the Gentiles. She's taking a literary vengeance in the same way kind of that the Romans did with the Gospels. So she's just taking the story of Jesus and she's reworking it in a dozen ways and all these plays to show that the Gentiles have this bad ending instead of the ending that, in the Gospels where you have a new covenant. She's saying, look, that's all bogus. And here's another version of the story. So that was Shakespeare. And I brought that book out, probably against my better judgment, but it also became popular. And, God help us. I mean, it could be developed into a film, which I just.
Oh, I hope so. I hope we got a film where Shakespeare is just is basically my wife.
Believe me, it would just. I just shudder to think about. I was crazy, and I did agree to.
Who plays Shakespeare? And your Natalie Portman?
It would be a black woman.
Oh, black woman. Yeah, of course.
You'd have a dark skinned woman because you see, the Amelia Bassano is very dark skinned. In the sonnets, which are autobiographical, she talks about my breasts are dun, which means brown. She was always distressed about being dark skinned. And so you have a lot of this, her life is represented in the plays, And
so Shakespeare was a black Jewish woman?
Yeah, she was a Sephardic Jew. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I've heard it all.
Yeah, and so she's very identified. I mean, it's kind of, again, it's like funny. Scholarship is a weird thing. She's the only person who could have written the plays. She's the only one who had the knowledge. she had her life. I mean, she has all the languages. She was a language tutor. She knew about things like Italy. You know, she'd been to Italy. She'd been to, you know, I mean, her family. The reason why all the Italian plays occur in like Verona and this is because that's where her family comes from. See, so her life is represented in the plays, and once you realize, you know, she wasn't hard to find really. She wrote the first poem under her real name. It was called Salve Deus Rex Georgium, meaning Hail God, King of the Jews. There's a title. And it has all this cannibal jokes in it, which are all relating, you know, to the Shakespearean literature. So I read her poem and I realized, yeah, this is the author. And so I brought that out. But a lot of the like Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, it deals like Romeo and Juliet and kind of the basic sort of famous plays, and those are very easy to link into the Gospels. But some of the plays are far harder, like Timon of Athens is one I find fascinating because it's actually about the letter of Timothy and Trajan's relationship with Domitian, and you get Suetonius is his literature is being represented in both the letters of Paul and also in Shakespearean's reactions to it. Well, all of that is analysis I haven't brought out, so it's not something really can be coherently discussed. But it just, these are books in the future which I've written. But you know, I'll tell you, I not sure, you know, the humor gets worse as you go along. I mean, the stuff I've, you know, like the cannibal humor and stuff, it's the Caesar's humor is very vulgar. And when you go further into it with Paul and the letters of Paul, believe me, it's very vulgar. Shakespeare, it's even worse. I mean, she's writing just really vicious scatological stuff. So, you know, you don't want to overturn all of this literature that people think of as so, you know, supportive of the idea of humanity. It's too much for me. You know, I did the analysis, but I think I'm holding back some of it for posterity in case people will, you know, they can chew on this for a little bit and then they can take it in small bites. But actually, the sad thing is that it even goes into the future. There are people who understand what I've written. There, believe me, there are people who know sort of the cognoscenti level. It's not hidden. And so the modern authors, some of them had this understanding and they write about it. And so, you know, like Brave New World, Huxley's book has an awareness of it. Brave New World is a concept from Shakespeare. It's from The Tempest. And if people are curious about this and want to see what the future of my literary revelations will be, that piece of analysis is for free. You don't have to buy a book or anything. It's online. Just type in my name in The Tempest and it'll pop up. And you can read that The Tempest is based on the book of Isaiah. It's a complete reworking of it. And it's mocking the Flavian use of the book of Isaiah in the New Testament. And the expression Brave New World is actually a reference to a kind of world that Isaiah envisioned, which is post-Gentile. So it's very, you know, brutal kind of literary material. And
what,
so
just Jews on earth?
Yeah, that would be
noisy.
The book of Isaiah. Yeah, the book of Isaiah talks about this kind of desolation, and it's somewhat cryptic, but it's a little more vivid if you're familiar with the scrolls and how those guys looked at Isaiah. But you know, Isaiah, you know, he talks about, you know, there's going to be this. You know, he talks about Ariel, the spirit of Jerusalem, spirit of the Jews, and then Shakespeare in The Tempest creates Ariel, uses the thing as a sprite. You know, kind of this magical, like Tinkerbell is like based on Ariel, you know. So Ariel, at the end, she is set free, but then you have this typology linking to Isaiah's most grim prophecy of desolation, and everything is dead, and the Gentiles are gone, and like flowers are going to start blooming in the desert, and we're going to have our basically our world. And Shakespeare actually then makes a typological link to that. Again, it's just totally whiffed by Shakespearean scholars. They're worse than the New Testament scholars, frankly. And I go, look, sorry, but this is just too vivid. You can't say the first half of the book is all Book of Isaiah and then not claim that this, which is so completely clear, is, this is what Brave New World is. That's the Brave New World. And then Huxley used it that way. Kipling also used Brave New World in The Gods of the Copybook heading, and in exactly the same way. He talks about, when socialism onsets and everyone is just put to sleep, the gods of the copybook heading, again, take a long time to explain the expression, but he's just talking about the Old Testament. They'll return with slaughter and vengeance. So the Brave New World leads to this post-Gentile world. And this was his understanding. And of course, it was also my interpretation of the Tempest. So it's kind of interesting analysis if you just.
We're getting towards a Brave New World kind of scenario. Feels like. They had something where they had artificial wombs. Earlier, I think this year, or maybe late last year, where they're. Yeah.
I don't know, brother. I'm a curmudgeon who lives in his living room with a computer. I try to stay away from that stuff.
Do not go on Twitter right now talking about this post-Gentile world. You're gonna get.
I don't believe me. I don't do Twitter. I have a tremendous potential for communication because the books have created controversy, but it doesn't really add much to my life to engage in fights or even engage with like people who are fans. I just try to stay away from all that. I liked your show. I thought your show was honest, and I listened to a couple. I thought, Danny's a really good guy. I'll definitely come on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I just want to support the show.
Yeah, thank you. It was very cool that you came on. It's fun. It's fun to talk about this. The whole black woman Shakespeare thing blew my mind, probably more than anything. But all right, let's take another call here, and then we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for your time. We are going to. I don't know where we're going to. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
This is Zach. Hello again, Denny.
Zach, how's it going, man?
Doing all right. I originally had called because I wanted to ask Joe if he was familiar with Adam Green, only to find out through Googling that he's done Adam Green's show, and he talks about a lot of similar stuff, so he might be an interesting guest.
Yeah, Adam Green has been on the show before.
Oh, okay. Well, that shows me. And I was also curious if Joe believes that Jesus had existed as a historical personage, perhaps not literally the Son of God. And I think he already kind of addressed that.
All I can say is I don't know. And it's semantical, man. It's like there was certainly messianic figures in this era. There was a real person captured on the Mount of Olives, and he was crucified. It's actually documented by Josephus, and I show it in the book. This is the basis for the story that they put in the Gospels. Now, was that individual someone that Christians would relate to? Probably not, because he was a messianic warrior, who was fighting against Rome. So he would be sort of unrecognizable, I think, to Roman Christians. But he's a real person, and I show who he is. I show the actual historical Jesus. You can't really understand who this individual is without the typology. Josephus doesn't talk about him as this is the messianic leader of the movement, but he's the one who was captured on the Mount of Olives. He's the one who's called the branch. He's the one who is crucified in a group of three. He's taken down from the cross by Joseph Arimathea. That's the actual Joseph Bar Mathea. It's a pun, Joseph Arimathea in the Gospels is a pun on the Joseph Bar Mathea. And so he takes him down from the cross, and he survives miraculously, just like Jesus. So there's the whole story right there in the Roman war with the Jews, and they slipped it into the Gospels, so it shows that there was a historical person. what he was like that's for the readers to, determine on their own. That's not for me.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. My only other question really is, I'm curious what you think of Mormonism, because I think it kind of goes to your idea that you don't want to undermine people's faith. And their faith is as real as anyone's. But if you were to ask anyone but a Mormon how valid Mormon theology is, they would tell you that it's like retarded and clearly ahistorical.
I mean, isn't that kind of the nature of faith, where you kind of people throw the kitchen sink at you and you just go, no, this is my faith.
Brother, here's my position on religious text. I decode it, and I'm just talking tip to stern. The Torah, the story of Muhammad, the New Testament. I just look at this stuff as oligarchic literature. This is typically the oligarchs want to get their way somehow, and so they tell you that you gotta fight, and if we lose, it's because you weren't religious enough or pure enough, or you've got to obey the magistrates, or the Quran has all of these stories of military value. I mean, they're subtle, they're infectious, but I just find them to be best explained as oligarchic literature. They're just there to inspire people to obey and do what the political elite want us to do. I think the return to the Socratic method, where we just engage with one another using facts and logic, is the best hope, and I think we should embrace that in a religious zealot way. We should just try to embrace reason and an exchange of reason with one another.
Yeah. I do feel like religion, I've never been a religious person. I'm not a religious person, but my dog just died a few weeks ago, and it sucks. And, I've had some people die in my life. It's tough. Religion definitely is the best framework for dealing with bad shit in your life, I feel like.
And for grief too. I mean,
and for grief and all this stuff, because it's so much better when you're like, oh, this is what happens, and people die, and that's just what it is. Or you can be like, oh, they're in a better place, and you spin this whole story, and it literally, for the people who believe in this stuff full bore, I go, it is better. It does, I'm not able to do it, but it does seem like if you can, it is better.
I mean, I had that exact talk with myself when I was thinking about bringing out the analysis or not bringing it out. And I knew it wouldn't be some kind of worldwide phenomenon. I mean, it's too complicated.
Better hope not.
but I knew it would have impact on some people. I knew the analysis would eventually, get traction. There'd be some people be affected, and I honestly didn't know if it would be good or bad. Frankly.
Yeah.
I had that the discussion you described I had with myself. I go, faith, even though I don't have it, doesn't mean it isn't valuable and worthwhile to a lot of people. So what am I really doing here with this analysis? What am I trying to accomplish?
Yeah. All right, Zach, anything else there?
I just want to know, would Jesus have used food stamps and voted Mamdani? Just to tie it all together.
He would have been a big Mamdani guy.
Jesus had the eternal snap card, because he could you could go to the River Jordan, and he could deliver more fish than you started out with.
Sure. Just never ran out. Infinite money glitch. All right. Thanks,
Thank you so much.
All right. We just have one more caller, and then we're going to wrap this up. We just had one pop in here. Phone lines are closed, everybody. No more calls, please. We are going to, I don't know where. Here we go. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Last call of the night. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Peter. I have a question for Mr. Atwill.
Go ahead.
Out of the different Roman scholars who testified or mentioned, or alleged to have mentioned Jesus Christ's existence, I usually think of Suetonius and Tacitus.
Suetonius,
any other? Sorry.
Well, let me just say those guys,
uh,
like the guys that
yeah.
mentioned Jesus, Suetonius, Josephus, Dio, Tacitus, people oftentimes they'll go, well, look at the Tacitus quote, right? He talks about Jesus Christ and that the Christians came and burned Rome, and so doesn't that like void your theory? And my response is, well, you got to understand that these guys are all on the Flavian payroll. I mean, Tacitus is literally paid by the Flavians to produce propaganda. That's what he admits it. It's in his annals. He says, hey, they give me the money. So it doesn't really contradict the theory at all, because my theory is that the Romans, that the Flavian Caesars produced basically a fictional character for political purposes, right? Okay, so now you have Tacitus talking about the fictional character. Well, that's just more of the gospel story. You see what I mean? It's just, this isn't someone who's like a historian doing an analysis of what's going on in Judea, in 30 CE. I mean, it's a Roman court historian at the time the Gospels are being produced, and he says, hey, this went on in Judea. Well, yeah. I mean, Josephus also says it too. Josephus says, hey, Jesus, he was in there, at 30 and died on the cross. And so, yeah, there's a lot of the Flavian court historians. They all responded with, some version of the Gospels. They all said, hey, Jesus was running around in 30. But they also all made the claim that the Jewish messianic prophecies foresaw the Flavian Caesar. See, this is the dead giveaway, is that they all said that the Jews believed the prophecies belonged to themselves, and there was going to be some Jew who was going to stand up and get rid of the Romans. But they were wrong. These prophecies all looked, in fact, to Caesar. Now, this is what the Gospels say. See, this is what, when you understand the Gospels, that's the Gospels' political purpose, and it's what they're doing. They're telling you that the prophecies foresee Caesar. So when you have like Suetonius and Dio saying, and the Jews rebelled because they believed in some coming Messiah, but you know what? Those prophecies foresee, Vespasian. Well, that gives away the game. You see what I mean? I mean, it's clear that because that's such an implausible and weird idea that the fact that they shared it, it supports my theory. It shows that, look, this concept was inside the Flavian court. They had the idea of taking the Jewish prophecies, kind of reworking them, and then ending up with, the Son of Man being predicted by Jesus, and he would be literally predicting, the coming of the Roman Caesar.
That is fascinating. Danny, thank you for getting Mr. Atwill on. I've never heard of that theory before, and
cool.
I'll have to look into it.
Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. That has been the show. Thank you again, Joe, for coming on. Where's the best place people can get your books? Just Amazon?
Yeah, you just get them Amazon. Just Google my name and Amazon, they'll pop up. Caesar's Messiah or Shakespeare's Secret Messiah. And if they're curious about, like I said, The Tempest is like a kind of a taste of the.
I'll find it and I'll put the link below.
But just bear in mind, when you get into The Tempest, you're now into, it's complicated typology. It's not like a light read. If you're gonna look at it, you got to remember it's like you're talking about Suetonius, you're talking about books, an analysis, and of Paul, and but it's pretty straightforward in the sense that people never really don't get the fact that The Tempest is actually reworking Isaiah. That part is pretty simple, and then when you get to the key moment, the really important thing, that's really visible too. So I recommend people read it and see what they think.
Cool. I'll put a link below. It was funny talking about it. You're saying they're making a movie out of it, and all I could think of
No. They have an option. I mean,
an option, but all I could think of is if
I think that, and I've talked to these guys, and I go, I think it's great you have this idea, but they just have no idea what they're actually. I mean, they think about ratings, but this is not really kid stuff. You really have to be careful about. I mean, Caesar's Messiah was actually, I dealt with like literally the most like famous kind of producer people in Hollywood actually came to my house, some of these guys, and they were thinking about it as a movie. And we, at the end of the day, they go, this is like not safe, to do this.
It'll cause a lot. But yeah, just with the Shakespeare thing, just if they cast it as this black
They could do,
people would just be like, "Oh, this woke shit." Of course, Netflix is like,
put it in a lighthearted way and didn't get into the darkness. It could be a great story, but
yeah, it sounds cool.
That's why, but it would, I think it'd kind of be good for culture to have that sort of story out there. But then when you get into the actual analysis of the problem here is what the plays mean. The Shakespearean plays, people think they're like uplifting, but that's because they don't understand them. If they understood them, they wouldn't think that.
Right.
They don't understand like Jesus. If they got the New Testament, people who read Caesar's Messiah, that they don't look at the New Testament in the same way anymore. So
yeah,
dangerous stuff. Stay away from it. It's unless you need to do it.
Well, thank you again for coming on, Joe.
Okay.
Appreciate
Talk to you, brother.
Have a great night.
Okay.
Joe Atwill, everybody. That's been the show. Hope you guys liked it. I'm gonna read some super chats before I get out of here. Howling Labubu says, "Can you please keep doing the show?" Yes, for now. Howling Labubu says, "You're muted." I don't know what the hell the muting was about. I hope that wasn't for too long. I didn't do anything to mute myself, so I don't. There's nothing that could have muted me, but of course, fucking course. Kay says, can you re-intro him? We heard nothing, Danny. Here's the intro. Joe Atwill is the author of Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus and Shakespeare's secret Messiah. Basically, that was it. Drew Huntley says, does this guy think Africa is a real place? Anton says, any man who believes in Jesus is gay. Same for the God or whatever. Praying to a man, gay. Seems a little gay. Anton also says, fish for men, gay. When they're talking about all that fishing for men, it's a little sus. All I'm saying. And then Anton again says, so you died and your heaven was to be with a man, gay. Can't argue with Anton. He's got a point. And then Drew Huntley says, can he say that Connor Dog is in heaven? I mean, I think Connor Dog's in heaven, except I don't know if I believe in heaven. But, like I said, it's the better scenario. Obviously, you feel better about your dog dying if you go, he's on the Rainbow Bridge or whatever they keep saying, which is what everybody says when your dog dies. He goes, he's on some Rainbow Bridge. Sounds pretty gay. That's the episode, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Low Value Mail. Tonight, we'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m., live from the Stand Comedy Club Green Room with an all-new episode of The Bathhouse. And it's election night in America. Not all over America, but there's a bunch of shit going on. So tune in. We'll be live covering the Mamdani thing. I don't know if we will, but I'm sure we'll keep you up to date. Also, there's a little link. Go sign up for my mailing list if you want to see me live doing stand-up comedy. DannyComedy.com. I got some new dates that'll be coming up soon. And support the show, patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL. Or just do any of the things I ask you to do. Like the stream, subscribe to the channel. Have a lovely night, everybody. See you soon.
I'm really a poet, you know it, all my shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Bleep, blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurting. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5, got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenally. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comical. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, then they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch.